you don't have a quorum yet. Sorry.
Robert?
Oh, the Robert down there, sorry, Robert,
I'm
you
here.
stuck in down
I'm
there,
here.
sorry, your name was over here, so let me, okay, good, you're good, go, keep going.
Want me to sit with
Keep
my
going.
name?
No,
I'll move your name.
that's fine.
That confused me.
I'll move it.
No action items.
I'm moving your name.
Stop! Action item 1A is a review of enrollment data for fall 2022 and trends for CUNY and higher education. Our Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor will present this item.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? I think I'm going to stand. I'm going to walk around. It's already 6 o'clock. I'm going to lose you if I don't do cartwheels or something exciting during this. I think what you'll see, it is very exciting because we have a plan. That's the most important part of this. And we're excited to show you first what we're going to do, give you a sense of how it's going to flow today.
Okay.
Start with just a few slides as it relates to right now, right fall 2022. So you see where statically we've begun. Then we're going to move into the key strategies that we've identified to address it. And after that, we've got detailed information for you about spring and transfer in different pieces that we can dive into the data and show you what's available on the dashboards, but also the snapshots that we provided you in advance. And then finally, just to reiterate, our commitment to transparency going forward and a desire to find out exactly what type of information we'd like to have on a regular basis. So I have with me my trusty, handy-dandy Vice Chancellor of Enrollment, Renee Sarmiento, who began about, 6-7 months ago? And together we've been crafting a strategy, so we're going to tag team tonight. She's going to talk about the data specifically. I'm going to talk more about the strategies. But Renee, if you want, I've got this, if you want to.
Yeah, so the preliminary data is as you see here, and each day it's refreshed, right? So as enrollment continues, the snapshot is a comparison to the same date last year. So the total enrollment, as you could see, the comparison is negative 8.1%. And when you see the arrows go down, it means there's a decline. And then the one that I circled in the box is the freshman, the high note for this fall, that the enrollment for first-time freshmen is the same as last year, virtually the same. So at every day, the first dashboard you'll see is this kind of overview. One of the things that is also helpful is to look at overall enrollment based on sector, right? So the graph that you see here on the top is the senior colleges, the comprehensive community, and the graduate professionals. The columns with all the numbers are the 5-year head count totals. And as you could see the trend going up or down with the dotted lines. And then you could see the difference compared to 2 years ago versus last year. So for instance, for the senior colleges, you'll see if this number of 125 is 10% below 2020, but 6% when you look at last year. So what it says is that the gap is narrowing, but we still have a pretty substantial enrollment loss overall with the community college.
So when you say the gap is low, you're just losing students at a slower pace.
Correct. The gap, so in terms of the community colleges, at this point last year, 2 years ago, it was 20, and this next year, compared to last year, is at 11%. So overall, we're down from the university 8% as compared to last year. The other thing that I think is very helpful is at the top of each of these dashboards is the ability to drill down and look at certain segments. So while you see the comparison of the colleges, you could drill down to first-time freshmen, transfer, graduate, special programs, and each of them will have a different read of the enrollment. So earlier I said that enrollment was kind of flat. You could see where the first-time freshman enrollment is increasing, and it's still low at the community colleges and the comprehensive colleges. So that flat line you see was predominantly at the senior colleges.
Okay,
So
and your dashboards are going to be where?
We have these available for you to check into with credentials, or we can do snapshots regularly to send you if you don't want to engage with the data.
But you've got, if you're gonna have, say, you're gonna have the snapshots and we can hop in those snapshot, or not snapshots, but those
You could
basically.
play with this for hours, yes,
And as you pointed out, those are up-to-date numbers.
correct.
it'll be refreshed every day.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive data
Mhm.
source that really lets you dive into, because it's a multifaceted problem, right? What you see here, this starts to look not so bad, right? I mean, at least it's encouraging to see the growth for the senior colleges in freshmen. Retention's another question, and so we have to have multiple
Exactly.
approaches to these
And
issues.
in the admissions category, it does have continuing as a bucket. So you could look at the continuing student population.
Yep.
Just can you get back to that?
Yep.
So just, it would be in the column where you show the changes, there, because 20 and 21 are such unique years, and you do have the 5-year data, if you also just have the first year of data set. So, you know, change from 18, then change from 20 and 22, because then you can actually really see the pattern,
You can,
because 20 and 21 is kind of, they're
Mhm.
unique years.
Yep.
Right, so if you plot in 2018, then you can get a real sense as to where are we from 2018, if that's like a base
Are
year.
you meaning like pre-COVID to now?
all of that is possible.
Yeah.
All of that is possible. So it's what you want to
Right,
see.
I don't think anyone else is gonna, no one, realistically, people aren't gonna be messing with these data sets that much, you're gonna see what's over on the screen. So it would be good to, that's the first thing you should see, right? How much are we down from 18, then 20, and then 22? So you see the trends improving, great, but you wanna see trend. And I'm not sure that 20 and 21 are reflective of any trend.
Oh, but you're
Because
saying
2021, you see where it's at, the 5-year.
It's
Yeah, I know, the 5-year, yeah, so the 5-year's good, but you can't really,
But you can look 18 to, you can compare 18 to 2022.
yeah, well, nobody percentage change.
The scale on that is.
Oh, so so coming all the way to the right and looking at percentage change, you wanna be
The
able.
5-year trend line is great, but you can't see any numbers in that, and it doesn't really, it's informative as far as it shows a trend, but actual percent change, if you just added another column in the 2021 and 20, and just 18, that's all, just add the column.
Yes.
Sure. Colin Shellman is our director of, another associate vice chancellor who is taking notes. And we can do this in whatever way you want. Keep in mind, there's only so much data you're gonna get on a single slide. So, you know, it does get to be, we do play with it to make sure it actually says something. And it is a little challenging, but we can definitely add in, I mean, we can at least put in a 2018 here so that you can see
So,
from that.
on the spark lines, it's scale on the y-axis from min to max, and if you had it by percentage change from 2018, it would pop out exactly what's being asked for, it would just pop out, and you
Yeah.
could see the differential without having to sort of compute the numbers.
And then the other question, Rob, I know that would be, do you want 18 to be
Well, you're looking
Yeah.
at pre-COVID and then.
I know, but I said, do
I just picked
we,
18 because that was the last one.
but I said that you could decide also what year you think,
People have talked about using 14, which is your last, which is your highest. But then again, now we're back, you know, so at what point, I think 18's a pre-COVID year.
okay.
And that's you know, we're looking at 5 years worth of data, 18's probably the best place to start.
Okay. So this is intended to be pretty basic stuff here at the beginning. We've got more sophisticated data than what we've provided you in the packet. And in part because we wanted to talk about what we're doing before you start to see the impact in spring, which looks better. So we're starting to see some momentum in that space and we're excited about it. But it is important, and I think, you know, we're talking about 2018, 2019, 2014, just to have a moment to talk about what we control and what we don't control. We do not control demographics. It is absolutely true nationwide that the number of 18-year-olds has declined. It is also true that that has had a disproportionate effect in New York City based on COVID as people have moved out. We've seen that in the Department of Ed, so that's not going to end anytime soon. We're actually, it looks like that will be an increasing factor as we go that we're going to have to deal with. When we have a hot job market, we have a decline in enrollment. By and large, we're a counter-cyclical industry. And the inflation rate also makes some people at least feel like they better be working because they can't afford their daily bread. So all of those things are in the background as we're trying to figure out what to do here. What we do control, of course, is substantial. We control our programs to create exciting degree programs that are workforce connected, that people want to come into, that appeal to not just the 18-year-old, right? But to a much, much broader segment of our society. It is increasingly the adult learner that we are looking at as the untapped market. That's part of CUNY Reconnect that we'll talk about here in a minute. And also how we do our admission strategies, how we do our marketing, how we use technology. So we're going to talk about all of these things under the theory as the data started to show you. You can slice it 100 different ways and you're going to come up with 100 different solutions. So the only way to attack this challenge is to be hitting on every front where there is an enrollment decline or a source of potential enrollment decline. So that's what we're doing. We're looking across the enterprise. When they come in, how they stay, how they graduate, how they're supported while they're here. One of the things that I've mentioned, I don't think I've spoken about here, but I am reorganizing my office in the Office of Academic Affairs, and one of the changes we are contemplating making is to create an office not of enrollment management, but of admissions and retention, to reflect the fact that those numbers are across the life cycle of the student. It isn't at the point of matriculation. We've got to keep them. And in fact, our data, I know I told you this the last time we came together, shows us that while we're getting back the freshmen, we are losing retention rates that are unacceptable. Disproportionately for the students who began with us during COVID, we're in a totally virtual environment. So there's lots of stuff going on. Another issue we don't control, right? COVID, obviously, and also the impact on K through 12. So what we're going to do is run through some of these strategies. I'm mindful we don't want to give you a grocery list, but we would like to show you how comprehensive the strategy is and that it hits in multiple buckets. So Renee, you want to talk about K through 16?
So these are a combination of K-16 and admissions initiatives to help with the pipeline of freshmen. So from the 6th grade to the 12th grade, we do have CUNY Explorers, which is a program that helps students acclimate to college and college career and get that mindset. The high school learning recovery is the CUNY Tutor Program, and we employ about 275 CUNY students to go into the Department of Ed schools where they're needed the most to tutor in critical areas such as math, English, and sciences.
And let me just add, that is extremely successful because we are not only getting the CUNY brand and the mentoring and helping those students matriculate, we're giving funding to our existing students to help them stay enrolled. So it really is a complete circle of support, and it's shown some really great results.
The other thing that we're doing is we're engaging the counselors at the high school. Currently, they get a flat PDF file of the status of their students' applications. This portal will be real-time to be able to inform the counselor about the status of the applications so that they could be a partner in helping our students transition. One of the things that the chancellor asked for early on was families need to know whether or not they could afford a CUNY education. And so an estimated financial aid award will help bridge that and understand, especially for our underserved students, that not only is the cost to attend low, but in our community colleges, up to 70% of our students attend tuition free, right? And so that's something that we really want to be able to continue to espouse to the students and to the counselors. The college.
That's really good, by the way. That's really
Thank you, Chancellor, for the suggestion.
Well, we also lose, one of the things is we lose some of the privates, right? They get that package first, and you see that you got $10,000 scholarship. That's already in your mind, even though you might end up having to pay more, right? The real cost in your mind, right? And we come in and it's almost free, but you see no scholarship. It's actually, so the earliest we can be in their mindset about being an option that's affordable, the better.
It also communicates engagement, I mean, everybody wants to be wanted. And the longer it takes us to respond, the more it feels like we don't care that much. So the more, all of these things in terms of timing are critical to our ability to attract the students from the application to matriculation.
The other thing which really is important, and I think made the papers earlier on, is our College Now program. There's currently 14,000 students getting credits in their junior and senior year. And the task force has been put together to see how we could connect those credits also to workforce. So again, if they're not getting it in tutoring, if they're not getting it through CUNY Explorer, they're also getting it as they go into College Now courses. The Early College Initiative goes all the way to 6th grade, all the way to 14th grade, right? Like the bachelor's degree. And that is, the goal is to be able to get students at their associate's degree by the time they graduate from high school. Thus, they go right into the senior colleges to do classes in their major. The career introduction, that's the CUNY Explorers, and then the Bridge program, which I think is really, this is relatively new. When COVID hit, a lot of the students didn't feel a connection or didn't know how to kind of move into the college space. So they offered, K-16 offered a Bridge program to help onboard them, and 70% of those students who participated enrolled right away, and some are even trickling as we speak. We're going to run this pilot again this January, and we're anticipating another 3,000 students. So these are 3,000 students that graduated in COVID years or this June that have not gone anywhere according to our data. And how do we capture them in a way that prepares them? So if they're not hit in any one of those areas up above, we're going to capture them as they exit and make sure that they have a parachute in which to land.
One thing I just wanted to add here that you may not know, we always think you do, but you probably don't. We have someone specifically, Andrea Sunachan, who works with this K through 16, and she is meeting with Department of Ed officials weekly. In fact, there's an entire team around, just a very large team that's mostly grant funded. And they engage regularly, literally, I would say daily, probably from Andrea's perspective. But we are there, we're in the schools, we are working on this. It is truly a K through 16 kind of approach. So then, of course, the issue is how do we get them to know about us if we haven't touched them personally in K through 16, and also, yeah.
The initiatives on the first, are those all new initiatives?
No.
All ongoing?
Some of them, for example, part of what we're looking, this is very new, with the idea that we reach out to say you're admitted to qualified juniors instead of waiting for them to come to us. That type of instantaneous and proactive engagement, that's new.
The portal, yeah.
The portal, the application, the financial aid, and then the emphasis in early programs focused on career, those are all new.
And the Bridge programs are new for
Yes.
COVID, right? Yeah, so a good bit of this is new. All of them have pieces that have been done, but not the coordinated strategy.
Hey, by the way, just a dumb question from a couple of years ago. Are we still, because of our over-reliance on our relationship with BOE, we were going to, or we were doing Common App, or part of it, whatever happened there?
So we did a pilot, and we can happily present, and the data was not
Would love to see the data
Yeah.
there. And
And,
only because it's, again, that was back to we're duplicating.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work, and Renee is more of an expert than me, but isn't about an $850,000 fix to ensure that that works with our system as it's currently running. So it is not a costless shift. And based on our early pilot, it's not suggesting that it's getting the return that would justify that.
I would love to see the data for that.
Yeah, and
Only
those
because-
are the things that to me is critical, is the Common App doesn't accommodate for the community colleges. So we'd still have to have something for it. And the new CRM has a graduate application, freshman application, transfer, that's all built in.
Sure, but then again, it all would, that's only for our application, then basically only works for New York City Public School students.
Well, if a student wanted to apply to.
They have to do the application separately from their Common App.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing too, just because we looked at all these things too, the Common App is not the only, so if we wanted to go that route, in addition to the cost and all those things, it has to be procured, because there's other folks that also do that.
Okay, I'd love to see
Yeah, so we looked at
the
that.
data, we did a pilot, I'd love to see the outcome.
Sure.
of that.
I think the only school that reported a positive outcome was at Baruch. Yeah, Baruch. Which would make sense, right? I mean, they obviously are more competitive in terms of an external.
I'm sorry if I may, I just wanted to share a personal thing because my children are just now in college stuff. So I've actually been privy to some of the orientations, and I wonder, is there, how is the Office of Outreach to the DOE working? Because I was sitting in on some of the presentations from CUNY representatives, and I felt like, CUNY has a lot more to offer than what they said. So I think there is some space to improve, like the targeting language, how language is kind of targeted for the youth. My kids go to specialized film school, but even there, after that, I was chatting with parents and I was saying, what was this? There was not. It was all data. We serve this many students, all numbers. A 17-year-old sitting in their room is not gonna. They want to know like what's exciting about CUNY. So we have grade this, or go here for that, go there for that. And my kids and I, we were all sitting, because my kids are looking at Hunter's Film Program. There was no mention of any of the things that people can do, and I thought, there is definitely, as a linguist, I first thought like language, how do you message that? How do you get these kids excited? So there are lots and lots of people. This has been going on for a year. I do have to say that eventually Macaulay app is very good, because my kids are looking into that. Tomorrow is the deadline. So that was very successful with lots of their friends. The second session, after I actually spoke to parents, because I'm one of the PTA, there were 102 parents, out of 180, actually on that session for CUNY. So it doesn't matter. I think language matters, how we target, particularly specialized high schools, So I think there is maybe, I don't know who, works with that specific area, but that's just an idea. And this is firsthand as a parent who was in those sessions.
Very valuable.
It's always useful to hear the multi-experienced user, and we can always do better, so we'll share that feedback. What I wanted to show you just one or two quick pieces of the marketing campaign. We'll see if it works. Is it Control Enter or not? I apologize. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to. You want to? Maybe you could figure it out.
Rob? Yeah, just on the marketing campaign, who does this for us? Is this in-house? Do we hire?
I struggled with the shame of not finishing my degree. CUNY gave me the special support I needed. They gave me personalized help with re-enrolling and guided me every step of the way. 30 years later, with a new bachelor's on my resume and my master's on the way, I now have the confidence to finally reach my full potential. Join me.
That was for the CUNY Reconnect program, and Renee and I will talk about the results of that in just a second. I'll just show you one more. Can you do this one? Particularly like this one, so I wanted to show you.
Starting college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. CUNY taught me what my dream job was, then helped me land it. I went from cashier to finance intern to full-time analyst at a top bank all months before my graduation. I'm financing my future, and CUNY is the best investment I've ever made. Join me.
That one's my favorite. We can
I
stop
like the
there.
one where the student ends up in the high school classroom, right? And he's a gentleman of color, so I like the fact that he started at a DOE school and now he's teaching. So
So we actually have those, and what I'll do is I'll send them to you so you can play them. If I played them all, we wouldn't have enough time. But the answer to your question is these are primarily done in-house by Maite Junko and her team, and we use real students and actually have won a decent number of awards for using real students and a real experience. So she couldn't be here tonight, but I can show you a few statistics. They are looking very carefully at where the bang for the buck is. I mean, there are places that are doing $250 million worth of advertising in a single year. So it's a competitive environment.
And how can we, I think the thing that's, how can you measure?
Well,
And so
they-
what metrics get used there?
Well, for that, we have something on the outside that tells you how many clicks you got based on and we have all that data that we can provide. How many applications, yes.
The clicks, the number of hits, obviously, but also how effective. And you know, at some point you have to be able to measure that too.
They can measure it pretty effectively with the online ads, because what the students are doing are scanning them, it's taking them straight to a website, they're collecting that data. And what they found is they're getting very good returns on the online pieces. Not so great with the print ads, right, on the metros and things like that. Part of the question that I have is that's really directed toward the parents and helping them get brand identity. So the fact that nobody's clicking on that doesn't mean that it's not working.
Sure, but then again, you start to get to, is that outdated? And I mean,
From their perspective, we heard them give a lengthy conversation. They believe that that is a low priority in terms of the advertising dollars.
Particularly with $10.
Yeah, they think that that's not necessarily bang for your buck. And as you can see, it's very comprehensive. They're going toward the major selling points, you know, with CUNY Reconnect, TAP, Transfer, Grad Studies, ASAP, online. A significant advertising campaign for CUNY Online will start soon, which we'll talk about when we get to that. But gives you a sense that it's very comprehensive. And if this is something you all would like more information on, we can set that up to have the experts give you that presentation. I'm just gonna go through these. We'll send you these.
one last dumb question.
Sure.
When we talk about transfer,
Yes.
it comes back to transfer from where?
Mostly from our own community colleges,
Okay,
but not necessarily.
okay.
But we can also, because I heard you, we have data on where the transfers begin and go. I mean, if you want a more detail, that can be done. It varies from college to college, but we
No,
can do that.
if only because when I ask about the transfer, and I know the transfers are down in a lot of ways, the question becomes transfers from where? If it's from our college, from our 2 years to our 4-year, that brings us back to a conversation from a couple of weeks ago, just saying.
Well, and it's up here.
Yeah.
It just
It's
brings
certainly
us
a
back
part
to
of the
that.
plan. I mean, that's,
Yep.
Yeah.
you never want to lose the person you've already brought in for
Correct.
obvious reasons, right?
Obviously.
So one of the things, what we hear all the time is the student experience. The student experience is obviously a critical point, and something that declined, obviously, as part of COVID. We tried our best, but it's not the same as being in person. What we did was take a lesson from that and actually do better. Now we provide both modalities, so students can access student services remotely if they want to, which is really, really popular, or they can meet in person with an advisor. In terms of childcare, which we know is critical to enrollment, that we've used very effectively the money from the governor, as well as looking at articulation agreements that allows, I think we talked about this at the board meeting, some of our vertical infrastructure just doesn't suit a childcare center. And so we're creating articulation agreements across the campuses. And I believe there's a new one coming up at QCC.
Kingsborough, yeah.
Kingsborough.
Queensborough, yeah.
Queensborough. So, very exciting work that's being done there. Part-time workforce TAP, you want to talk about just real quick?
So this is a big campaign. We're seeing in our enrollment that more students are going part-time. So how do they take advantage of it if they're enrolled from 6 credits to 11 credits? And then the workforce TAP is, hopefully will be to me a pipeline from the continuing ed side to the credit side where they can get a credential, get workforce TAP, and have it count towards a degree. So there's going to be some good alignment there.
Also looking at our student success programs and whether they can be adapted to part-time. You know, of course, we prefer that they go full-time, but we're seeing students just can't carry a full load in this environment. So we have ACE and ASAP, some of our most impressive programs are under-enrolled. So there might be some opportunities there.
Part-time time is new. If we can just make sure that we're tracking those students after their TAP kind of runs out, because the story on TAP isn't great, just in general, right? The TAP, not necessarily not with a degree. So on part-time TAP, you know, is kind of doubling down on that. We want to make sure that they're not necessarily converting to full-time, but continuing.
Right.
Right, so that they actually end up with a degree. So tracking that, because that has not been tracked really when it comes to TAP.
Yep.
Right, but with the new program, we know HSC doing it, but we'd like to make sure we're doing that as well. Because then it just becomes an enrollment program, and we're collecting money, and students are taking the classes, but they're not necessarily ending up with, any.
Either degree or certificates or whatever, exactly.
A lot of the artificial intelligence pieces roll right into that, because obviously financial aid and enrollment are directly linked, but they're not treated as a seamless continuum. So what we're seeing on campuses is more and more one shop where you have one person that intersects with both of those things, but also expanding things like micro grants. When we know you've run out of your last dollar, the evidence is really good that as little as $500 in your last 2 years of study has a 30% return. So there are definitely ways to track this. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I recently received an email as an instructor about the SEEK students. This was an app and it was fantastic. Just asked me already 3 times how the students are progressing, and it was very easy to kind of fill it out. Everything was like super, I don't know, just touching something. It was done. And then the feedback. And I'm wondering, like something like that, because we have a lot of TAP students in my program, and I feel like that's an area that we never, just students.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yep, I totally agree with you. Yep. So I'll just quickly finish up here and tell you that mental health is a huge issue. You know this. We've got 80,000 students, I believe, we're accessing services at this moment, and we've done that in a remote way as well so that they don't have to walk into a counseling office, which is really helpful. Our resource centers are at full blast in terms of the housing, the healthcare, all of those pieces that students need help with. And there are more than 600 clubs going on, 900 student activities in the last semester. So it's not quite back to where it was, but it's getting there. It's getting there. All right, so you want to talk about CUNY Reconnect and the results we've seen so far?
Yeah, so just this last fall, we had 12,000 students readmit, so they had some college, no degree. We reached out to 17,000 of them.
What does that look like compared to, and I know we had a COVID year and or COVID too, what does it look like to any prior years? And I realize you weren't doing a CUNY readmit or Reconnect, but just to compare numbers.
Being here for the last 6 months, I don't, do you know the readmit data? Has it held steady?
So we're a little bit above traditional trends. So
That's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
No, that is, we'd just love to see, since there's been a focus and we're committing dollars, we'd just love to see.
We're absolutely tracking that, yeah.
We'd love to
Part of it is
see compared to the past when we weren't.
Yeah,
as
part of
focused.
it is that we came in late, right? The funding came in late, we were past the cycle. You would not see the results of this necessarily in the fall. We'll start to see them in the spring. And even with the late start, was it 3,000 students?
Yeah, 3,000.
We can specifically identify for the fall, with the late start, 3,000 students that our efforts brought in. And then there was an additional, 10,000?
Yes.
Additional 10,000 who reconnected even without our direct outreach.
The advertising campaign is paying off in very big dividends. So I'm getting colleges flooded with calls and emails, and I said, make sure that your online interactive tools are working. So they're linking them directly to the site, and then we're farming them out to the individual colleges with a warm handshake, right? So that they're just not sent there and say, here, work them. And we're also following up with the colleges to make sure that they're following up on it too. Because right about now, they're also working on their spring applications. And so there's a multitude of things that they're working on, but this has special emphasis.
It obviously goes along with learning disruption, learning loss. We're working across the campuses. We know we're losing more students in a retention setting. They're stopping out, in part because they're having worse outcomes as a result of COVID. So there is a cross-campus task force that's working on that now. We talked a little bit at the Board of Trustees retreat or education session about how we use artificial intelligence, and it goes hand in hand with advising. Your point, Luby, is exactly right. What we have right now is a system of advising that's good at the bottom and the top. Our most vulnerable students have pretty good advising and pretty good ratios with CDC, ACE, and ASAP. Our top students have pretty good advising with Macaulay or honors programs. We have a huge middle where we're losing students because we don't have sufficient numbers of advisors in place. So one of the key asks that you'll see in the budget request is to increase the number of advisors. But in conjunction with artificial intelligence, that allows us to then target those advisor resources to those who are in crisis or beginning to leave the path, right? What we don't want to do is come in 2 days before the withdrawal deadline and say, hey, you haven't gone to the first 5 classes or you failed your first 2 exams. At the very first sign, and I mentioned to you before, we can do this with a pretty high level of precision of predicting who's going to leave the class or not graduate effectively from the course. We immediately trigger the advisor, trigger the professor in some cases, and allow the intervention at that moment. So it's a very, it's been proven effective, it's enormously effective at Georgia State. Wayne State has done this. There are places this has been replicated. We're going to bring it here if we can get the, we certainly can do some of it regardless, but hopefully can get some extra funding for that. Just to add the connections to careers within the disciplines, there's significant work going on to both start with meta majors. We're talking about the benefits of that. So when you come in, you identify one of 6 different areas. We can't tell the campuses to do that. We can tell them it has significant retention effects. So we're talking to them about that. And then working with professors to intentionally connect what they do to career outcomes. Very important stuff. And then finally, we could spend 2 hours talking about the transfer initiative. I'm happy to come back and actually, at any time, walk you through what we have. We have a slide deck, we have a plan. I'm excited to show it to you, but we expect that that will have a significant impact. There is no reason that we should ever lose any associate's degree student. 80% of them-ish come in wanting a 4-year degree, and less than, 18%, I think, actually do. It's a travesty, and we will fix that. And then finally, and I'm gonna wrap this up rather quickly, but the innovative programs is a huge part of this. CUNY Online is an enormous piece of the puzzle as it relates to enrollment. Enrollment patterns, as I said, with demographics are declining. There's one place where they are going up, and it's in an online environment. It's overwhelming in the field. And CUNY has some programs, but it doesn't have a lot of programs. And so what we're doing is a twofold approach. We're building internal capacity with instructional designers that will then assist the campuses to get these things up, get them up quickly, and get them out into the market. We will identify which programs using a market analysis study. So the typical way these things happen, there are professors in a particular department in a particular college that say, hey, we think it might be a good idea to do a course in this, or we think this is the place that the industry, or the, not industry, an interesting evolution of the discipline is going. That's great, but that's not strategic. And so with this market study, what we will do is identify where the demand is nationally, identify where the gaps are in our programs. So to your point about transfer, if you start in a 2-year online program and there's not a 3rd and 4th year to complete your bachelor's, you're out of CUNY, you're gone. So we will identify those gaps, put an infusion of resources to complete them, and move from there. We also, you will see not too long from now, a request to use, I don't like calling it an OPM because it's not an OPM, don't believe in that, but they do have fee for service that we can use federal dollars to scale up again quickly to bring some of these things to students within a year as opposed to 2 or 3. All of that comes with adult learners, which we just said is the part that is not tapped. It comes with certificates, and it is primarily, not primarily, but particularly effective with graduate degrees, right? Because these are working adults who don't have time to come in. All of that plays out with our in-person as well. That's what I want to assure you. This is not developing a separate university. It's still part of the university, because all of that expertise comes into the classroom for individual courses, that allows our on-campus students to have flexibility to have a mix of classes that meets their needs. A lot of them don't want to commute, as you can imagine, every day of the week. This will allow them to mix and match. So I think the dashboards. Okay, you all have the handouts that we gave you before, not the ones that, copy the 8 handouts. No, they've got the slides, but did we do the documents?
It was for the onboard?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the documents are on onboard. Excuse me.
Unless you have copies of it extra.
I don't have it.
By the way, does this mean we're going to do some national marketing too, online?
Oh, it's all national, yes.
So my ribs will have a chance to heal, so every time there's a ad on television for somebody else, my wife elbows me and says, why aren't you doing this? So,
You know, the great thing about it is it just builds capacity across both online and in person with those advertisements. So it is part of our strategic plan allocation of the $40 million that we identified.
Employees from neighboring states, not just for the online, but just for regular too, so that's not totally national, but.
no, I mean, one day I want to advertise in Arizona, and I want to advertise in New Hampshire, because University of Phoenix and Southern New Hampshire, whatever.
They have a lot of ads.
They have
The only thing I want
Well,
I wanna get-
Southern New Hampshire doesn't advertise in New Hampshire.
No, I
They don't
understand
get
that.
students there.
Which is, I said,
That's-
which is why I want to advertise eventually
I
in
do
both
want
of
to-
those states.
Caution you that they spend $250 million on advertising a year. That's how they develop that enormous behemoth. that
And
they
what was
have.
the return in the end? And I understand.
Oh, they're the biggest university in the country, so it's
Exactly.
pretty good.
Exactly. So I know we're not gonna commit 250 right now, but then
Yeah.
again, at a certain point, success begets success. You start to.
I definitely agree. One piece of that strategy, and I can come back and talk through the specifics, but we are not building it as a separate unit of CUNY.
Correct.
We are building it within our colleges. Southern New Hampshire actually built it as a separate unit because it was too hard with the union to get that through. So there's some interesting nuances in this space. So with the documents that we sent you, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over the first 3, which look very similar to what you had before. And so I'm going to go to the 5th one. Well, maybe I'll just go to, these aren't numbered. It's on onboard if you're not. Colin, do you have it on your screen?
Yes, I
Can we hook in the projector to show it? We handed these out, but we didn't make secondary copies. Well, let me talk you through the most important piece, and then we'll make sure to give you time to look at these and ask questions, follow-up questions. But it's a total admits for spring semester, so to give you some sense of what is happening here. And also our unique applications for spring semester. So now we get to the forward-looking piece. Are we starting to create some momentum? And what we found is from this point, from November 2nd last year to November 2nd this year, our applications are up by 6.9%. So that's a pretty significant increase. We're very happy with that. And that's unique applicants, right? So it's not, we have people apply to multiple schools. We're not counting them once each time they apply. It's by person. And then the next page is unique, is the total admits for first-time freshmen, and that is up by 25%. Part of that is are we doing a more holistic review to get that number, or we have more qualified candidates, do you know?
This is the pipeline, so it's not, the holistic review has been ongoing since COVID.
Great. So, I mean, that's a great increase. Of course, the challenge is now we need to get them to matriculate, right? We've admitted them. Now our work begins or continues in terms of that personal touch. There it is right there. So this is the 6.9%. Down here is the unique applicants. And you can see, for example, that City is up 28%. Queens is up 22.5%. We've got some decline, and this is a really small school, so that's an outlier with labor and urban studies. They've actually been growing for most of this time. Staten Island's having one of the more difficult pieces here. The COVID policies of vaccination are having more of an impact out there. But, double digits even for some of our community colleges like Hostos, that's Gutman. Bronx has 10%, and Queensboro has 12%. So some positive momentum there. Can you do the next one, Colin? Do you have them all up there?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll just keep going through. Do you have it on the computer?
And the spring number, I'll just add that it's particularly encouraging because normally the spring is a weaker semester than the fall, right? So that we're up on our traditional weaker semester with some of the, it's
There's a lot still to see.
Yeah.
It's just nice to see some of those numbers turning positive, and we'll do our work. So the other piece, obviously, is the persistence, which is graduation and retention, to get them through. Here we have some pretty good news. We did not fall off like you might have expected as a result of COVID. This is a 4-year institution persistence rate for full-time freshmen in associate's degrees. So these are our community college students. You can see in 2009 it was 32%, and it steadily rose. We have a slight decline. We had a high of 36.9 in 2016. Remember, it's 4 years out, and then 36% here. But remember, these students went through COVID. Their 4 years encountered, so that is actually a better result than I expected to see. It'll be interesting to see next year if it falls off. I think it very well may, but I'm encouraged that it's less than I expected to see in this space. By the way, 36 isn't good enough, and that's something that we're working on with all of those student success pieces that we talked about. Can you do the next one? I can show you the 4-year, or the 6-year rather. These are our senior colleges, the 6-year graduation and retention rate, and that is a high. That's 59.1%. That's higher than anywhere in that trajectory. So better again than I think we would expect. We also, we have some amazing excellence. It's worth pointing out, Baruch is 76.6%. That's significantly above the national average. And so in my conversations with them, it's like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Is it the quality of the students that you're getting from the get-go, or are there particular things you're doing that are very effective? So, all right, can we go next?
And by the way, we'd love to know, just again, what percentage of Baruch grads want to go into a job?
I'm sure we have that data. Yep.
Yeah.
This is transfer data. I know you want to see it.
No, that's.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, just on the other chart, because there is such a big difference between the schools on
Yeah.
the retention rate. So, for instance, you're looking to see what they're doing. They must be doing something very different because they have such dramatic, either the student population is dramatically different, or they're doing something dramatically different.
They're not doing anything dramatically different that I've identified. I do think the caliber of student that's being attracted into Baruch is substantially higher than some of our others. So we're taking them from a higher position and platforming them up. That doesn't mean we can't do it with the rest of them, but it is a different set of challenges.
Even with them, even with Brooklyn, right below this, it's still like there's a big gap between 76 and 60 for Brooklyn.
Yeah, we're parsing out, my interest is in looking at the data. How do these students come in, and then how does that play out in terms of the outcomes? Because part of it, remember, is also retention. So you will see there might be socioeconomically more vulnerable students out of Brooklyn, so that they would stop out and come back and go more part-time. So those things also play into those factors.
And one thing that I'll just add, Baruch being such a focus. I mean, I always, I think there's there to show. I mean, there's the students, but there's also programmatically. I mean, you have students mostly in 2 buckets. Folks that want to do things around business and people that do public affairs. right? Most of the other four-year schools are more traditional liberal arts, and I think that creates some, there's a capacity to be more focused on the career alignment, a whole bunch of things, curriculum, all those things, because I think you have students that are inherently, immediately very focused, and they normally know what they want to do. And I think that affects some of the numbers.
So you're arguing for more targeted schools?
Now, I'm just responding to the trustees' difference. Yeah.
So just real quickly to end here, this is the kind of thing you could stare at for a long time and digest and try and figure out what it means. But this is the picture of credit transfer at the moment. This is by receiving college. So what are they accepting when they go into these senior colleges? And you can see there's a pretty decent difference here. The blue is the major. And as far as the work that we're talking about engaging, it's in the blue space. That's what's, because everything theoretically can transfer, but it transfers in as an elective that doesn't move toward major credit. So this is the major credit, the yellow is general education, and you can see pretty significant, this is 44 versus 34.
What do the numbers represent?
Percentages of that transfer column,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that are accepted.
Credits, right?
They're all accepted into buckets.
No, I said that, it's not that only 34% of general education, but how would I articulate this?
34% of the 60 credits are general education that transfer, which doesn't make any sense because there should be about 30
No, it's
credits.
not a hard number,
Sorry,
it's a percentage.
it's also, the scale is 0 to 100%, so it's the percent of credits and how they transfer. The yellow is the gen ed bucket, so 34% of credits that are transferring that institution transfers general education credits.
So let's just make one of the blue for a second. What does that mean? What does the number mean in the blue for anyone? Baruch, 36, what does that mean? What does the 36 indicate?
The average student coming into Baruch has 36% of their credits that are counting toward the major. They have,
Does that mean that
I mean,
some
this is,
percentages are, that the remainder of that are not counting?
well, the green is what's refused.
Okay.
So those don't count toward anything. And you can see it's a fairly small percentage, but the piece is the elective. So it's this brown here, in some cases is really big, and the major credit is really small. That means they didn't, typically what that means, they didn't accept the major credit. They
Right,
took
so
it as an
this-
elective.
So if you had more blue,
More blue means more of your credits were accepted in your
But-
major. Less blue means less of your.
So if there
credits
was
were
more
accepted.
blue, that would be better.
Yes.
But to be clear, these are not necessarily people who graduated. It's not saying it's filtered on.
It's transfers to that credit.
So
yeah,
you
but then again,
may have
if I
transferred
can
early.
transfer less credits or fewer credits in my major, it's gonna be hard for me to graduate.
You maybe didn't take 60 credits though. That's, the gen ed piece should be all about the same if you're comparing people who transfer with 60 credits, which is what we're talking about, that vertical transfer where you earn an associate degree where 30 of your credits are gen ed and all 30 transfer. So that yellow bucket would be all the same if you were comparing what we want to address, which is associate students transferring to senior college. So this is a confusing graphic because it commingles many different cohorts. It probably also includes transfer students from outside the system, would be my guess, because some of those credits aren't transferring, and every credit at CUNY transfers. So I'm a little confused by that.
So this mixes degree holders and non-degree holders. It's anybody who transfers from an associate program into the baccalaureate program. So the type of guaranteed credit transfer that you're talking about, you have to be a degree holder in order for that to be true. This mixes those populations. So that's why you see this percentage differ across institution. The percentage transferring into gen ed or major.
Show the next slide. And maybe, I mean, look, this is just a very early slide, so we'll come back with better data. But I thought you'd like to see the other slide, which is the opposite, right, by the sending college. So you get some, because this is a two-way street, right? It may be that the community college is not playing with the senior colleges in terms of what they're offering. It can be that the senior college isn't accepting the credits from the community college, so you get a sense of the opposite here. So we're just, this is super early data, we're digging into it, we will come back with far more sophisticated data. And I know, John, we're actually working together on one of those projects, right, that you're looking with the Transfer Explorer data, so. We are at time. So I will just say, what this was intended to give you is not a holistic picture of every piece of thing that we're doing, but a good sense of what we're doing and a good sense of what kind of data is available for you to play with. We will send you again the sign-in instructions so that you can get in and play for yourself. Colin, if you submit it, I will do that.
Well, just make sure you guys coordinate with the secretary's
I'll
office.
reach out to you and we'll sort it out.
Okay.
Trustees.
And as I said, we're completely open to hearing what you would like to see in terms of the snapshots, because we can provide that for those of you who don't want to engage too carefully with the actual tool, which I understand. It's pretty detailed.
Thank you.
So thank you, appreciate it.
Information item 1D, I guess that's all.
It's the charter, so if
Yeah.
people have questions or comments about the committee charter, you can get them to me. We don't need to take any time.
Okay. So with no further items on the agenda, motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.